What's up, guys? I'm Alex.
I'm Jason. We're the Table Monkeys, and we are here with another video talking about technical prowess on the table. One thing we've been talking a lot about is this pyramid and the hill of arm wrestling techniques, and we want to kind of talk about the top of the hill, the rise, and why rising is the top of the hill, why it's signified that way, and how it kind of plays itself out in the fight that happens on the table, because understanding this rise and why it's the top of the hill kind of helps you understand all the rest of the fight science that happens on the table, which again, with arm wrestling, once you're within 10 to 15% strength of your opponent, it's much more a fight sport than a strength sport. It becomes much more about fight science and how you use the techniques and technical prowess that you might have or don't have on the table to win or end up losing a fight, right?
Right. So if we're thinking about dominating the fight science aspect of arm wrestling, we have to start with rise, because rising and winning the rise game allows you to be in the most dominant, efficient position.
It's basically like the way that you control the pace or control the direction of the fight, kind of like a jab in boxing. By setting your jab up in boxing or in MMA, that's the way that you're going to lead the fight and kind of lead the dance of what's going to happen from there on out, right? So the rise is we, with new guys especially, we keep trying to signify how that's the jab. Like, even if my goal is to land a big powerful hook, if I can really set it up with a good jab, it's going to make that hook that much more effective. That's the same thing on the table here. Like, if I want a really strong posting top roll or sweeping top roll, like, even though it's really based on how hard I can go to the side, if I don't establish that height first and win that high game first, I'm going to end up in a really shitty position when I try to go to the side, right? So you've got to control the fight, you've got to lead it, and the best way to lead it is with a jab, right? So,
yeah. And so the reason why that rise is the most efficient dominant position in arm wrestling and winning that first is that it makes your opponent be forced to hold on to you, because now they've lost the rise game, so they're the one that's trying to contain me. I don't have to contain him anymore because my post is in his fingers, but his post is not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm automatically now in the most efficient position. He's burning more energy than I am, which means he's draining faster than me. So he's the one that has to react now.
Exactly.
If he wants to stay in the fight.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, a lot of people will just end up slipping from this position because it's not smart to stay in that position.
And if you know what you're doing, you shouldn't be hanging on, so most people won't hang on in that position, so you'll end up slipping. But even once you get to the straps, the rise, although I don't feel that another aspect of the hill becomes more important than the rise, I feel that the hill gets a little bit more flattened out. Like, rise isn't so dominating or separating a factor as the rest of the fundamentals, right? But rise is still the first thing that you need to initiate with, and a lot of that, like, so the 3 steps again that we just went through is, the first thing is, if I rise first, I'm kind of dictating where the fight is going to start, and my opponent either has to decide to fight me there, to give it up, or give it up, right? And if he does fight me there, he's either going to win or lose. So there's kind of like, if you think there's 3 options, he can either fight for it and win it, fight for it and lose it, or not fight for it at all, which means he loses it. So those 3 options, I'm winning 2 of them, right? He's losing 2 of them if I always decide to fight for it first. So that's how we dictate the direction of the fight. Then the next thing is that Alex is forced to hang on to me, which is putting him in a less efficient position, which is forcing him to move first. So the next 3 points are, he has to hang on, he is in a less efficient position, and that forces him to move first, right? That's the key of rising first, and how, if you've heard Devin explain it, how once you control the top of the hill, you can kind of corner your opponent down the hill and control where it is we're going. So if Alex wants to come in and hook, I still have control of the high game. I can come in with him and match him there, feeling that that's where he's trying to go. I don't have to run and play the high game, although I can do that too if I want. But if he wants to go hook, I can come into the hook with him and be in a better position than he is. If he decides to go out and top roll, again, I'm on top, I've got the hand position, like, I can continue to control that part of the hill and chase him down and run him out of options.
So whether or not you actually want to fight in a posting style top roll in the match, still lead with it in the setup and at the beginning of the match, because that forces your opponent to at least fight there, put some energy into that pressure. And then if the match happens and you do win the rise game, at least then you'll be fighting from a better position. So I'll have the high hand in the hook or have the high hand in the top roll. But then it'll also forces your opponent to put some energy there, so it'll be easier for me to then get into a hook or into a press if I forced him to apply some up pressure as well.
Yeah, that's a great example of that is the way you set up your press, right? When Alex or a lot of pressers set up their press, they're setting up with really high and a lot of like posting back pressure, even though that's not where they're going. They're going to come down and come forward, but like Alex said, by setting up that way, it either forces their opponent to match them there, which is going to be really, like if I'm setting up for that and you want to match with post, then when I come in, the chances are I'm going to be able to turn you in and turn this into a shoulder roll pretty good. And if you don't want to match me there, if you start to like back out, like you're going to like low hand, you know, like if you're in that position, then when I come in to press, it's fine that you're going to get it in my fingers because I'm coming with my thumb, you know, to flop.
Yeah, and it's also a bit of a security thing too, because if you're coming forward and you don't have any back pressure, it's so much easier for your opponent to then beat you with their back pressure because you're not fighting it at all off the start.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll see these, like how a top roll can so easily dismantle a hook puller, because if they're putting all their eggs into coming forward, like into that basket, it just allows the top roller to eat that up, bring them all the way over to their side of the pad and win everything because they didn't have to fight their opponent's back pressure at all.
A great example of this is also Devin versus Taras Evakin. He wins that first round by fighting for the post first, losing the post, giving his hand, committing his shoulder, and getting into that defensive press, defensive hook position, burning Taras out a bit, and then being able to finish. And then he always talks about, this is like one of his biggest learning lessons, was every round after that, he basically just went for that defensive position and didn't fight high, and because of that, exactly what Alex just explained happened, he continuously gets pulled out just those couple millimeters further from his position, and he can't hang on to it as strong as he did in the first round. And he always talks about that, looking back, that it's because he doesn't fight to the top of the hill first. He thinks he found the answer, which is down here on the hill, so instead of fighting and then there first and then going to that part of the hill, he just starts going to that part of the hill, and that doesn't work. That's why it's the same thing, like comparing it to boxing. If you don't set up that hook with your jab, if you just come in with a back punch or a hook, it leaves you so much more open to counter attacks. That hook or that jab, even if you're not expecting to land it, it's there to set up the next punch. And that's the same thing with this post, like again with the press or the hook, right?
So just to recap, obviously we're talking about the intricate details of the fight science of arm wrestling, and this is only possible if you are within 15% of strength with your opponents.
Right.
Because obviously if they can just smash you sideways, none of this really matters.
Yeah.
But if you are within that, then the fight science is definitely important. So just to recap, the rise is the pinnacle of the hill because it's the most efficient position. It allows you to control and dictate the match. You lead the fight. Your opponent is forced to hang on to you. They're burning energy while you're in the most efficient position. And
it forces them to have to react and move first, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and like Alex said, again, this is all just if you're within that 15%. Rule number one is always be strong, because if you're not strong enough, you're not in the fight. But once you're in the fight, it becomes about all this cool fight science stuff, which is what we're really enjoying diving into and trying to theorize and make presentable to people the way that we're doing with this video here. So hopefully that's what happened. Hopefully this made a little more sense, and hopefully a lot of you guys who start in practice going, I really want to just crush down on my opponent, you can start hitting that rise first and then crushing down and see how much more effective that is, because no matter what move you're going for, kind of like Alex said earlier, if you start rising first, even if it's just in the setup and just as the go happens, it's gonna put you in a better position to go to any other position on the hill, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So if you like that video, please like the video, leave some feedback down in the comments.
Subscribe, smash the bell, all of those things.
And talk yourself.
Peace.
I've been bench pressed today. Didn't go so well. Try, man. Last time I got double for winning the fight. Yeah.